Hi everyone, this is a video about how I do sidechaining in my live techno system. If you're interested mainly in the music, then you might want to check out another video, but if you're interested in how the gear works and the equipment and things like that, then this one could be for you. So what is sidechaining? Well, it's that kind of classic sound that you get in a lot of dance music where things are kind of pumping in and out, often in time with the kick drum. It's kind of this sort of sound. So we've got a long sustained pad, which would normally sound like this. And then we have it pumping in and out in time with the kick drum. And why would you want to do that? Well, for starters, it sounds quite cool. If you've listened to any music by Daft Punk, you'll have heard it loads. It's a great kind of pumping sort of sound. Sounds a bit like old school sort of FM radio compression on stuff. It can make things sound bigger. Part of the reason it makes them sound bigger is it pulls things out of the way. So if everything's always being pulled out of the way of the kick drum, then the kick drum's going to sound bigger because it's got more space. You've only got so much space to play with, so if you give it to just one thing, then it's going to sound bigger. Also, if you do it on some elements, they can sometimes be actually like fighting for space in the frequency range. So if you've got like a very busy bass line that's playing all the time, and then you've got your kick drum, if they're playing at the same time, it can just sound a bit kind of muddy and mushy. So a few different purposes. One, just for like a cool effect. One for the sort of technical side of pulling frequencies out of the way to make things sound it's kind of professionally mixed and smooth. And also it can add a groove to things as well. It can make things kind of move within a groove, and it can make stuff coming out of a live system like this sound a bit more like a record, I guess, too. So how do we achieve this sound? Well, in a computer, it's relatively straightforward, partly because you've got like unlimited routing really and modules and stuff. Also, there's plugins that will do this kind of sound just for you. In Eurorack, there's actually some modules that do this kind of thing, but the way that I've got it set up is the kind of manual way, I guess, where I'm using some utility modules and some different things in order to achieve that sound. Now, in order to achieve it, what do you need? Well, you need a sound that you want to actually sidechain. So in this case, we're going to have this long sustained synth sound. Okay, so we've got that sound. Then you're going to need some way of changing the volume of that sound. I think what you're probably going to need is a VCA. There might be other ways to do this, but a voltage control amplifier. What a voltage control amplifier does is it lets you control the volume of the sound. So this sound is coming from the polycinematic synth, the chords, and it's running into this Zlob VCA here. So if I just play it again, at the most basic level, what a VCA does is give you a volume control. You run the signal in, you run the signal out, and you get a volume control. So I can just turn that up and down, which is useful in itself. But with a VCA, it's voltage controlled. So you can run a voltage into there to control the volume that something plays at. And that means you can do it much faster than you could do just by sort of manually tweaking the knob. And also you could do it in time. I'm not going to be standing here tweaking that the whole time I'm playing a set. I've got other things to do. You can also change the volume even up to audio rates, which is a completely different thing, and you can get some really interesting sounds. But we're not so interested in that for this. We're interested in ducking things out of the way. So the sound's running into the VCA, and we need some kind of control signal to be able to do that kind of ducking. Now, what a lot of people probably would use their kick drum sound to do that. I use a different sound within my sampler. So my kick drum does live within my sampler, but I have got a section of my sampler that's set up. What's called CV side. It's just got a sort of a kick drum like sound. I mean, you can see that looks pretty clipped actually, but I've just played around with this sound, and I've set the decay on it from within here you can set the envelope up. So I've set up an envelope. I could actually change that. I tend to leave it much the same, to be quite honest. So I've created this sound which is going to control my sound coming in and out, and that's on a separate piece of my sequencer, a separate channel of my sequencer. So if I unmute it, you can see that it's playing that sound. It's playing alongside the kick drum. You can see the kick drum down here. So they're two separate sounds. As I say, you could use your kick drum for the source if you want. The reason I like to use a different sound is if I just bring back in my chord sound that I was playing. Where's that gone? Oh yeah, I turn up the VCA. The reason I like to use a different sound, a different thing to the kick drum, is that it gives me more control. So in the sequencer, it doesn't have to be playing what the kick drum is. You can get some really interesting kind of different sidechain sounds going on. So that's something you'll hear a lot in Jamie XX's music, using different triggers for sidechains than just the kick drum. But traditionally in like techno music, you often use the kick drum. Anyway, it also means I can bring it in and out when the kick drum is still playing. So I can have a kick drum, I can unmute the sidechain, I can mute the sidechain, and it can give me more control, basically. So yeah, you've got your sound, your synth sound running into your VCA. You've got your sound, your kick drum or your CV sounds, which is like I use. One more thing that you need is you need to be able to shape that sound to be the right kind of shape to control the VCA. The way I do this is with an attenuverter. I've got a dual attenuverter here. So the sound from the sampler runs out of a separate output into the attenuverter, and I do two things with it in this attenuverter here. So the first thing I do is I turn it to the negative side to invert the signal, because we want the signal to turn it down. We don't want to turn it up with the kick drum. It will then just be sounding at the same time as the kick drum. We want to turn it down when you get a hit. So how you do that is you make it negative. Now, if it's all the way negative, then all we get happening is we don't get any sound, because the VCA, this VCA anyway, is expecting a positive input. So a negative signal is not much good. If we turn it all the way positive, as you can hear, you've just got it playing at the same time as the kick drum, which is not what we want. So what we do is we invert it, but then we use the offset to offset it back upwards, so that we've got like a positive signal, but one that's turning down. And we can change the intensity by how much we invert it. So if I set it to 0, it's not really doing anything. If I turn it just a little bit, we get that more subtle kind of side chaining, just bringing it in and out. If we turn it all the way down, we get that full kind of Daft Punk side chaining, everything flying in and out with the kick drum. So that's how I do a lot of my side chaining. And what do I use it on? Well, I've been playing it with this chord sound just to make it really obvious to you, because it's easier to hear. But actually what I often do it with is the bass. I've got my bass line coming from this synth, it's running into my VCA on a channel, and I've got the sidechain playing. Not at the moment, you might hear. This is just the bass line playing as it plays, and then I can bring the sidechain in. I unmute that sidechain sound on my sequencer, and we get that sound. And with the kick drum, you can do it a bit sort of subtly, or you could do it really loads. Really useful for the bass in this. There's not a lot of control of bass in this system, because it's a sort of fairly simple kind of mixing chain. So being able to sidechain the bass coming through is really, really useful. I also use it a lot on, I'm just going to turn the sidechain off, so demo, mute the sidechain. I use it a lot on percussion, this percussion sound. It's coming from my Basel pizza crust. Bring the sidechain in. mean, that sounds pretty extreme, doesn't it? But if I turn it a bit more down, like just this much, it adds a groove to that sound. And you can really hear there how it's like bringing it in and out. It's adding a groove to the sound. I've got this running through a delay as well. And I can mute the kick drum. I can mute the bass. That sidechain's still running. That's why I quite like to run it off something different to the kick drum, because I can still run it. If I turn off the sidechain as well, totally changes the sound, which can be useful as an effect, but it's good to be able to have it in at the same time. Bring in our chords over. Okay, so that's the majority of stuff. One other little trick that I do is that it's really useful for some things to be able to turn the sidechain on and off independently. So for example, I want my sidechain to be always playing on that percussion and that bass, especially on the bass if we just hear that, because it's part of getting the groove to the sound and so on, but I might not always want it on these chords. So I want to be able to turn it off. And it's still running on the bass, but it's not running on those chords. So how I achieve that is by using switches. So down here I have got a 2-in, 1-out switch. One side of it is, and the output of that switch is running to the VCA channel that this synth is running through. So as I've probably left out before, I need quite a lot of splitters for this. So that inverted signal is running through about 3 or 4 splitter cables. These are the tendrils splitter cables, so that I can send it to different parts of the system. I can send it to multiple VCAs in here. But so I send it off to this switch. So one side, when the switch is over on this side, then we get our chords sidechaining, but when I flick the switch to the other side, then they're not sidechaining. Now, you can't just have nothing plugged into this switch, because if you did that, we would have sidechaining, and then when you turn it off, the VCA is getting 0 signal. You can actually you can hear it coming through a little bit for some reason, but it's no good, it's way too quiet. So what I do is on the attenuverter, I've got another section on the attenuverter. I'm not attenuverting it at all. Oh, I am a tiny bit, that's why we were hearing it come through. But that's supposed to be at 0. And then we turn the offset all the way up. So that just gives it a constant switch over, sidechain, switch over, constant. And so it's always playing the same thing. So this switch is 2 input, 1 output. It's got 2 channels, so I can use that to control the sidechain for 2 different parts. What I tend to do is I have the sidechain kind of hardwired to the bass and to the percussion instrument, because I just always use it on that. I mean, I could turn it off by muting it in the sequencer, and I do that, but it's really fundamental to how I use those 2 modules. Whereas with the chords and with other things, I have the switch to be able to switch it in and out. And I don't use the sidechained chords that often, but it's a really nice option to have. So I can do that with the switch. So just to recap, sidechaining, you've got to have the parts running through a VCA so that you can control the amplitude or the volume of those things. You need to have a trigger signal, which could just be your kick drum, or it could be another signal like I do. You're going to need an attenuverter so that you can invert that signal and then offset it back up, and that will give you your control signal to run into your VCA control for the sidechain. And if you want to, you can use a switch to be able to switch that in and out. But just don't forget that you're going to need not just the sidechain signal on one side of the switch, but on the other side, you're going to need a constant or an offset so that the volume's still there when you switch it over the other side. And you can tweak the amount of offset just to make sure that you're getting a good balance when you switch between those 2 sides of the switch. You can also use the sidechain for modulation. I have the sidechain running into my various synth voices so that I can have not just the volume changing, but you can actually have the timbre of and the character of the sound changing based on that sidechain, which can be quite interesting. And then you can get into all sorts of things. So long as you can use enough splitters to get enough copies of the signal, you can put them into all sorts of modulation inputs and get some really interesting sounds. So I hope that's been useful. That's how I do sidechaining in the system. If you have any questions or if anything's not been clear, do just drop them in the comments. I always try and answer those questions in the comments. And if you've got any other parts of the system that you're interested in understanding, just drop a comment as well. I thought of doing this video because of a couple of comments that I'd had on previous videos. So if you give me your thoughts on what you want to see, I will bear those in mind for future videos. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.